Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here for part 2 of our Opus 14 set review. This time we will be covering Earth, Lightning, and Water, and I, of course, once again joined by Jared Wallace, Eureka himself. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Oh, I'm happy to have you here. Well, let's just jump right into it. So we're going to start with Earth, and first we have this Dark Knight. When he enters a feat, he's just going to deal yourself a point of damage. He'll gain Brave damage 5. I mean, do you ever play this over the Cecil? He technically has more power, but Cecil obviously has the removal, or do you not really compare those two?
You're ever going to be like in a situation where you want to play one over the other? You're probably going to want to play both if you are into this kind of deck. I think it could have a lot of potential in like I'm not sure about like seeing standard play as just a 3CP 9K. I'm not even sure that cuts it anymore, but it could be okay if you're like trying to reach specific damage thresholds. Mm-hmm. So like one that comes to mind is like if you're doing like a Fire Earth Axstar deck, this could be okay. And I think that kind of deck might be even more potent in one of the smaller formats, like L3 or L6.
Yeah, that's fair.
It seems pretty likely that you'll see like maybe like one or two of these in like a self-damage Axstar kind of deck.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be super popular, but it's a nice kind of efficient body to have with this effect in the card. So I think it's a lot better than the other ones that we've seen in this cycle, which are basically like useless cards.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could see this in Monks or something where it's like, I gotta get that one damage, get the Yang out, whatever. So, well said. Okay.
Yep.
All right, now we have, they love Whorl from Mobius because this guy gets so many cards. And this art is so funny, too. I think someone said in the Discord, it's like Sarah is like polishing his butt armor or something. It's so funny. Yeah. But man, does this have huge implications. Playing Neo ExDeath for free, Braska's Final Aeon for free, Yasmat for free. Oh, that doesn't sound fun to play against. Card's kind of scary, not gonna lie.
I'm not a huge fan of like when they make cards like this that kind of like make the boss cards like super consistent. I think it's a total flavor fail. That like Whorl is like the protagonist, the good guy, and he like summons the boss right next to him, and all of his compatriots are like useless targets for this card, and only the bosses are good. But yeah, I think so. The primary uses for this is going to be like in a close to no backup deck as a way to like put another zero cost forward down alongside ExDeath, Neo ExDeath, sorry, and like mono wind, mono earth, where you're going to be using it to play a bunch of your off-color cards. And then when you don't have the Whorl, you can play the off-color cards with a Tyro or Shantotto or whatever. And I think you can build around a deck like that as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. He looks pretty scary. Okay, here we have a card that's very near and dear to my heart. This was my first spoiler. This is Carbuncle, and I had a great time making that video, and everyone had a really good response to it. So I feel like I'm so biased towards this card, similar to what you said earlier, is because I'm just like, this was my spoiler, and he's so cute. I will agree, I don't actually particularly like this style design for Carbuncle, because his head is huge and the crystal is so tiny. That being said, I'll try to put as much as my personal bias aside as I can. I do honestly think it's a cool card, especially in mono. In Monks, it's going to draw you a card, and it's in particular, it doesn't target, which I think is very important because they can't make it fizzle, really. They're going to have to cancel it. So it's just, hey, flat buff to the field, and it's an EX burst. So I love it. Am I being biased, Jared? Tell me. Be honest with me, man.
No, I think that the card is actually pretty good. It's probably the best of the summon cycle that we got this set. It's just like a 1 CP cantrip that has a useful effect. It's just good. So the obvious downside there is that this card can't really be played in dual color decks. So you're either playing like backup, like decks that only play like a few backups, and those you have to play like the one backup. So what comes to mind is ExDeath is obviously one of those, or like Doga, where you only have one backup, and so this is always going to trigger, or you're just going to play it in mono. But I think in mono it's a great fit. Obviously works really well with Titan, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I think it's just a very, very solid card, good cantrip. Reminds me a lot of Kukulane, the one CP, where it's just a good card, and then it also has an EX burst on it, which makes it great.
Major thanks to RB and Hobby Japan and Square Enix for giving me such a cool spoiler. Had a great time with it. All right. See you, Carbuncle. Next, we have Calbrena. Man, I love this artwork. This is your Earth version of the monster, and it could get expensive to do her effect, but, similar to the other doll, it can revive over and over again as long as you're willing to keep stacking backups. And it comes in active, which, again, I think is very important because then you got this big chonky blocker. Now, you have to be a little careful because if you put out too many backups, it's not going to be a forward anymore, so then it's not going to be able to block, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I like the card, but is it going to see play?
If you're going to play mono, you might as well play at least one or maybe two of this. Mm-hmm. I think probably one. But it's, a 3 CP 9K that comes back in active if you're willing to sack a backup. It's just fine. We're totally on board with that. There's a bunch of backups in Mono Earth specifically that they're good when they come in and then they don't do anything. So your Claris, your Kolka, you want to play another one of those basically, or a utility backup or whatever. And you don't mind sacking those early game consistency backups off to Calbrena once you're in a little bit later. And obviously, if you're playing mono, you're going to have Anacro. This card's going to be 10k. Great, fantastic fight target. And I think that's maybe the biggest thing. If you're playing Tyro, or if you're playing a mono earth, monks or whatever, you could probably play this and then just use it to enable Sarah Mobius. If Sarah Mobius is coming in off of the Tyro, you can just really, really safely fight Calbrena and whatever, because nobody wants to kill the Calbrena at a neg.
Right.
So, you're going to get a lot of value out of it that way. I think it's probably maybe the third best or second best in the cycle here, maybe behind Wind for sure, but maybe tied with the Water one, Octomammoth. Yeah. So, I think I actually have pretty high expectations for this card, all things considered.
Cool. I'll have to give it a try. Okay, next we have our Earth Primal, who, if you're a 14 player, has caused many a new player issues. Very a thematic card for Titan Lord of Crags. In the game, he has a move called Landslide, and he would shoot out these AoEs in different directions. And if you got hit by him, you got knocked off the platform, and you were dead. You were dead for the entire fight. And back in the day, before they updated the game, the camera wouldn't even show you the fight. It would just show you dead at the bottom of a pit forever. Yeah, so it's very appropriate. He kind of just landslides everything off the field. That being said, this is the only Earth Primal. Earth is the only one that didn't get an additional Primal. Kind of weird, and I don't know. He hits your own forwards as well. I don't think it's going to be hard to get his ability. It's an Earth. You could use Enacro. You could use the Carbuncle. You could use any of those Earth forwards that buff anything. You could use a Graviton. You're basically going to board wipe the field. That's not going to be an issue. Will you be able to do enough to get to that 1 point of damage? That I'm not sure of. So I do like him, but I don't know. I can't help but feel a little underwhelmed by him. How do you see him?
Yeah, so Titan's in this really weird space where, if you just play Titan as a 7 CP 9k, he's not going to wipe everything. He's going to wipe, all the small stuff and all the middle-sized stuff, but, he can't wipe, an opponent's Agrius. He can't wipe a Braska's Final Aeon. He can't wipe these, 9 and 10ks. Unless you start combining buff effects with him.
Right.
So if you have Anacro and his own backup that buffs him, so if you buff him and combine him with Carbuncle, combine him with these power buffs, then you can realistically wipe everything. And it seems very clear that they wanted this card to be really good in Mono Earth and probably not as good in Earth and something else.
Yeah.
So it kind of falls a little flat compared to Leviathan, compared to Sasano in terms of the potency of the board clear. But I think that's actually a really good thing, because we've seen decks like Sophie where it's just you play Shantotto and then you win the game. Where I think they wanted to avoid this kind of play pattern where it's just you put your backups down, you play Shantotto or you play Titan, and then the board is clear, and then you just play a bunch of cheap threats and win the game.
Right.
And I think Titan is really good at it's designed just well enough that it doesn't necessarily fit into that same play pattern. But I think it rewards you really heavily for playing mono specifically, and power boosting effects that are more suited to the mono style of strategy than decks like Sophie, which if this was a 10k or if it just killed everything, then they would have snapped played 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah.
And I think as a result, they kind of have to think about like whether they want to be playing Titan, and if they play Titan, do they want to play power boosting effects, or do they want to play Leviathan? You know, Leviathan costs 2 more, and so yeah, it's in a really weird space where it's just really good for its mono, and it's just kind of okay for the other stuff.
Yeah, that is great breakdown. Okay, and then we have the Chichu monster, a typical monster garbage. Moving on.
Yeah.
A card I was pretty high when I first saw it, and the more I read it, the more I wonder if did I overestimate it, and that's Kitone. She's a ninja, and I think that's really cool. And again, before we saw some of this other stuff, something that stops action abilities is, I think, really good. And it's an EX burst, so it can prevent them from attacking or blocking. It's a good burst to hit. Her dream within a dream is kind of weird. Like, I know that's a ninja move in 14 and just kind of a considered ninja move in the lore. But it's, I don't know, it's weirdly expensive that you got $1 and pay a special and pay an earth, like, to do the 8K. So, like, I like her, but I don't know if I even want to play her in ninjas because, yeah, Edge will color fix her, but there's no other earth in that dex. Without Edge, you're not going to be able to, I don't know. Yeah, so I really liked her when I first saw her, but the more I think about her, I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to play this in ninjas. How do you feel?
There was a brief period when Ash was released where people were playing Earth Wind ninjas, and you had to play like the 2 CP Earth ninja backup that does like it I believe it breaks a dull forward of cost 2 or less. So it basically does nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that very specific niche, like being able to fulfill some of the backup requirements for Earth Wind ninjas to be a deck, it's got some potential use there. The EX burst is kind of useful, and Dream Within a Dream does absolutely nothing for ninjas. Yeah. I'm not sure why. On the flip side, as a like completely ignoring the ninja text and that kind of thing, it could be okay in Fire Earth just as like an extra EX burst, so pad for Axstar, and in that deck, so this is an FFBE card, so it's specifically you can use Axstar to go get the S ability with the search, and that's okay. It's not something to get super excited over. The S ability doing a bunch of damage, however, is like really only possible in mono.
Yeah.
And I don't think mono is going to play like multiple of these just to resolve the S ability when you could just board clear a Titan. So, exactly. Yeah. It's a cute card. It's got like a couple of things going for it. I don't really see it taking off in any place. We didn't really see the other parts that would be needed to make this card super sick.
Fair. All right, next we have our legend. This is Cloud. I kind of go back and forth on this card. Like on one hand, it's like I could see this card just being obnoxious. I know how strong the 7 cards are, especially if you combine this with the Opus XI Tifa, which I still think is the best Tifa. Him being just this massive brave body that can't be broken outright on damage 3, like forcing stuff to block. I don't know. Like that all seems pretty strong, and I've seen how obnoxious all the 7 cards can be when they're combined together. So on one hand, this guy kind of worries me, and on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. He's kind of one I've gone back and forth on. How do you see him?
I think that this might be one of the better legends in the set. I don't know if he's quite on par with specifically Leviathan, Bismarck. Those 2 in particular seem like maybe the best legends, but in terms of like a standalone card that's just like not like one of the primals, like one of these mono enablers or whatever, Cloud is probably the best, I think. The discard a category 7 to get protection and plus 1k it's so good. It's like maybe one of the most underrated things that you could possibly even have the potential to like overlook the CP value of. It's also worth noting how remarkably well this works with Primal Titan. So if you have this card on the field and you're using it to like slowly whittle down your opponent's stuff, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna play a bunch of forwards so that you can't kill my 1 forward every turn.
Yeah.
He's 10k, so when you play the Primal Titan won't break him. It'll break all of your opponent's stuff, and then he'll sink back down to 8k afterwards. So he doesn't actually get broken by he kind of like cheats that ability. And that works really well there. And if Primal Titan wasn't able to like clean up 1 forward or whatever, then the Cloud will clean it up. It's not a huge deal. And you don't have to pay anything for the effect. There's no pay 1 Earth and discard or pay 1 Earth to make your opponent do the thing. You just do it. And I think that's really, really potent. And the only question is like whether we have the FF7 card pool to support the ability. And I think even now with Barrett and Tifa and like Jesse and Phoenix 4 is a category 7 and like Titan 5 is a category 7 card. Just even with this alone, I'm pretty sure that this card is like bonkers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have high expectations for this card. If it falls flat, I'll be a little relieved actually, I think, because this kind of seems like one of the cards that like, oh man, it's gonna be a full art, it's gonna be really expensive, and like everybody's gonna buy it, and if it rules the format, it's gonna be like an awful time to be playing any of the fair decks. And so yeah, if it falls flat, I'll be relieved, but I'm pretty sure that this card is just really, really good.
Yeah, I wonder if one of the biggest issues it'll run into is it's called Cloud, and there's already so many good Clouds. So yeah. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, and one more point. It is worth noting that the new multi-element Tifa, I've talked about Fire Earth a lot, but the new multi-element Tifa just searches this card straight up. So it's got like a ton of ways to search it. You use Jesse, you can recur it with Marlene, and all of these like named cards that you would be worried about running just become ammo for the Cloud ability. So it's not as huge of a deal as it might initially seem.
It's fair. All right, then we have the Kobold. That's your primal activator for Titan. We know about those.
Yep.
Move on to Shantotto. I think it's a cool card. Just it's on a card named Shantotto. So is it ever going to see play?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yep, exactly. It's just real quick in L6 specifically, fantastic card. I think if you're in a format where you can't play Shantotto 7, this card is awesome. But like if you're in a format where you're choosing between Shantotto 5 and Shantotto 7, there's no way Shantotto 5 ever wins. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Next we have Dark Elf, which just has some really funny art, but I don't see you ever picking this. Anything to say?
I do have one thing to say about this.
Ooh, do tell.
If you have Enna Crow and Minwu out, there's no way to kill it. You can.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Because you can't deal more than 9k and you can't deal less than 9k, so you can't ever kill it with damage. So there is like some extremely niche situation in which you could like build a deck around this card, like very specifically like big dudes with Minwu with Dark Elf.
Yeah.
It's never gonna actually happen though. So.
Right. Well, yeah, and you could still break it outright or Kuchaspel or whatever.
Yeah.
Make
your opponent. Yeah. But yeah, if you were going to do this, like if you pull a full art Dark Elf, because this is a full art, don't forget,
right?
And you wanted to make use of it, like there is some nice, Bright Eye Night FFTCG meme energy going on with this card, and you can play some cool decks with it.
Oh man, I may have to do the memes now just for this. All right. Here we have Noctis, a card that I was so disappointed when I first saw it because I was like, why is it called Noctis? Like, I love playing my Category 15 deck, so I'm always looking for non-named cards that we already have. I was like, another Noctis. But there's also no denying he's got a pretty neat effect. I think most likely you're looking to pull back Regis or probably Verstale off of this.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. If you're playing like a 15 deck, you're not going to play this card because you have to play other Noctis, or any of the other Noctises. Yeah. But in Verstale specifically, being able to pull back Regis or Verstale with a backup and having a nice little CP sync is just great.
Fantastic. Here's Bagammon. I need to read what he does again. Choose a forward opponent controls act. Oh yeah, you basically can force something to block. Kind of interesting. I always find effects like this a little strange because one, he's on I find them strange on a backup because generally, at least the way I play, I want to curve out. I want to get my backups down early. So what you want to do with this card, though, you want to have a forward on the field already that can attack. That's going to be bigger than that one to force it to block, and then you're letting a backup enter. So, like, again, to me, this always comes down to a timing thing where, like, I think it's actually a kind of neat effect, but that timing seems like it's so hard to line up.
Yep. Cool effect. Actually, like, really good effect. But on a named backup, I'm not sure that it really makes the cut. You maybe play, one. Just, like, if you want to. If you find the room, or if, you're playing in one of the reduced formats, L3, L6, I think this card gets a lot better just because there's fewer backups to choose from. But I don't think it's, making waves in standard as a staple or whatever. And I don't think it fits Mono Earth's standard game plan. And Mono Earth is basically the only deck that will have room for this kind of card. So, probably doesn't make it. Maybe you see a cheeky one of one of those kinds of cards.
Paladin, that's the Earth one where you can scry through the cards. We'll go past that one. Hojo, so his first appearance in Final Fantasy trading card game. He's interesting because you remove a forward and then you play one less, where I would almost expect it to play above, but I guess that's what that old ninja does. So because of that, I don't know. I'm kind of having trouble rating this one just because no immediate combos come to mind. Is there anything I'm missing? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is just, Mono Earth or Fire Earth. For Mono Earth, you can turn Mont Leonis into any forward in the game. So because he's 11 and nothing else is 11, so you can turn him into any forward. And then if you're doing Fire Earth, for like if you red 13 out a card, you could Hojo the red 13 card and then turn that into something else. And it's like one of those combos. Or just Ranjit is cost 8 that comes out for 3, so you can turn Ranjit into Brass's Final Aeon or Arden or something like that, and that's pretty solid. And then if you're playing Fire Earth and you have like some of the other stuff, Hojo's you don't feel bad about having like maybe 1 or 2 Hojos in the deck and playing like 18 and 19 backups, because the extra Hojos are just going to become more cloud fuel, which is something that I mentioned earlier. It's just like one of those things where like a lot of the logic behind like not playing named backups, they just become dead draws. But like if all of your dead draws are just fuel for other cards, like Barrett getting back Tifa or using Cloud ability to give protection, then it doesn't really feel that bad. So I think in that deck specifically, Hojo's got a lot of legs to work on with. Yeah.
Curious to see what he does. Here we have Muraga Fennes. Same as that card from earlier. Again, I don't like stuff where it has to have died that turn. So yeah, this is just pack fodder.
Yep. It's it's maybe one of those cards that you'll see do okay in limited, or cube or whatever, but it's not going to see any constructed stuff.
New monk for our monk decks. Does this one make the cut? Are we putting this one in? It's basically a hackathon on a forward, comes in and has a monk fight somebody.
Yeah, this one is actually a lot more contentious than I thought it would be. I think if it was a 3 CP 7K, we would play like one, maybe. So as a 3 CP 6K, I'm like, probably not, man. I don't know. I think if you're playing like all monks and you've got like Enna Crow and you're doing power buffs and stuff like that, and like mono earth monks, very specifically that deck, then maybe it makes the cut as like a one of, I think. For like Sophie or whatever, if you're just playing Ursula, Yang, Matt, or maybe you're not even playing Matt, you're just playing like Ursula, Sophie, and Yang, there's no way that this makes the cut, because you don't want to aggressively fight Sophie and other cards, which I think is one of the most common misplays in the Sophie decks. You don't actually want to use Sarah Mobius's fight ability, and you wouldn't want to use this monk to make Sophie fight other stuff, because if they reduce the power on the stack by removing something, you just get totally blown out. So I don't think that this is ever making the cut in Sophie, and I think in a normal monk deck, maybe it's a one of.
All right, now we have Mont Leonis, the card that seems to exist for anyone who ever saw the 4 CP Zalira and said, wait a minute, so costs of 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. Is there an 11 cost? There's no 11 cost. Well, today there is, folks. Did this need to cost 11? I don't know. To me, that almost feels kind of gimmicky. Not that you'll ever pay 11 for him. He can get really cheap. Despite the 11, which I just can't take my eyes off of because it's the first card in the game to cost that much, right? He's certainly got an interesting effect, and again, with the Whorl and other things, I could see this, and here comes the Whorl, and then here comes your Braskas, and then so he's definitely got the shenanigans written all over him. What do you think of old Mont Leonis here?
Yeah, I mean, the effect is good. The cost reduction is obviously appropriate, and the on death ability to turn the next damage that you take into 0 is really well appreciated. That being said, I think people are seeing like, he costs 11, but he gets reduced by 1 for every Earth character you have, so he doesn't really cost that much. But then like I want you to like think that through. If you have 5 Earth backups, he still costs 6. That's still a lot of CP. So I think, and if you go like look through all of the targets for this card, you really got like, there's like Matt, Whorl, and you're starting to run dry, like after like two targets. So, and that's if you're playing like monks, right? So I'm not like sold on this card. I think it's maybe an okay addition into monks. I think it's probably worth playing if you're playing Red 13 specifically, because you're going to be able to like completely ignore the cost at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then in a pinch, you can maybe play it for like 6 onto a decent board and do something with that. But I don't think this is nearly as good as a lot of people want to think it is. That being said, there's still merit. I'm sure that we'll see it with Red 13 Hojo, because that's like what this card was made for, basically. So yeah, it's still going to be solid, even if it's just getting back a Barret or a Cloud off of the Red 13 and then immediately getting Hojo'd off into another card. That's still just like really CP efficient, so like we'll play it. But I don't think that this is just like a playable card by itself in just, you know, like a Earth/whatever deck. I think it's barely playable in mono Earth, and you're gonna have to be doing something really, really degenerate with it to be able to play it efficiently.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm curious to see where he goes. I think I was so taken in by his cost, I'm actually just realizing he only has 7,000 power. Like, I think in my head he was really so much bigger than that because of the cost. But yeah, power-wise, he's not that big. So we'll see where he ends up. Next is Lich. Here's our Earth Chaos. Complete garbage. Move past it. So that was Earth. Okay, so that's Earth. Moving on to Lightning. Here we have Ovjang from 11. And I don't know. Like, part of me is like, well, why don't I just play Zemus? Doesn't Zemus kind of do the same thing? I don't know. It's weird to me that he targets 3 or less specifically. Am I crazy focusing in on that? I feel like there's cards that just generically get back a forward, get back a backup. Is there something about this card I'm not seeing?
It's just flavor with the Aphmau, I'm pretty sure, because that's one of her puppets. So it's just like, you're supposed to get back Aphmau and then pay a lightning CP to put her into play, and I don't know. We're not playing this card, but if you were like really set on playing Aphmau, sure, like go ahead and play the card because that's what it's for. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, here we have Trapdoor. Really cool Amano art. I have the Sky series, which is Amano's artwork, and I've got all 3 of those books. And there's very few stuff that I'm like not familiar with his artwork, and this is one of the few pictures I don't recall seeing. So it's always like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I actually kind of like this one as far as these set of monsters go, just because again, on death, the fact that it could break something kind of gives me that Rubicante vibe of like, let me block that, I'll trade with it. If you're playing it in Mono Lightning, you probably have Lulu, so here, block that 9k, kill it, and then break that other card. So I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, I think in terms of these, this monster cycle, it's probably on the lower end, just because it doesn't have a enter the field ability, it has an enter the break zone ability.
Yeah.
And that it's not quite as good as Calbrena's enter the break zone ability, I think. So it's not an awful card by any means. I just don't see us actually like finding room to play this in a deck that's like mono lighting, that's trying to like aggressively put damage on the opponent to you know, close out the game.
If you get really creative with this, folks, when it kills one of your opponent's forwards, hit a big red button on your desk and a trap hole opens up beneath them, and they and then just be like, Trapdoor, bitch, and drop the card on top of them. All right, anyway. Next we hear is Aphmau, as we mentioned. Like, it's a cute little effect, but again, kind of similar with Emperor. Emperor to me wasn't enough, and he at least did something on entry. This card doesn't do anything. It's just a body. Like, I mean, it's cool you can recur it, but
it's a cool effect to have in the game. Is this one gonna be, you know, making waves? No.
Yeah, maybe in the future if they come out with more card name. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
One I'm quite high on, and I talked to Alex Hancox about this, and because, you know, this is his guy.
Oh yeah,
but I like this card a lot. This is ExDeath, and he wasn't really sure. Like, it's very expensive. Yes, I get that, but I think the swing is really good. Break one of their forwards, and then you get to play one right to the field. It's going to be active, so again, it can block for you immediately. And I'm always fond of specials on a backup because, as you said, normally the backups just become dead cards, whereas here, and that is a great special. Just remove something from the game. That's awesome. So I really like this card a lot. Maybe he'll end up being too expensive, but he also isn't, like, I don't know, ExDeath always has some kind of like pigeonhole. Like the other one is, oh, he has to be your 5th backup to get the most value out of him. This one, he could be your very first backup if you want him to. So I like him a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised that Alex rated this one so lowly.
Yeah.
Like, so because this was his spoiler, right? And I was like, dude, this card is sick. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm not like I don't think it's like one of the best cards in the set, but I think it's very solid. And I would be surprised if this didn't see play. I think one of the things that had a lot of people turned off about it when it was first revealed was like you go look at the lightning 4-drops and it's not super appealing, right? There's like Kuja and like Nyx and Aranea, and that's about it. But I think we got Al Cid, and then this one isn't locked into bring back a lightning, obviously.
Right.
So you're gonna have the lightning targets that whatever you're running incidentally, maybe Aranea, maybe Kuja, whatever. But then you're also gonna have your off-color stuff. So things that come to mind is if you're playing Ice, obviously you're gonna have the Al Cid stuff and all of that. But if you're playing Earth, you're gonna have Cloud is gonna be one of the ones that you have as an option there, and really whatever it is just going to be good enough. And it can bring back light and dark too. I think one of the things that was not really like thought about, because it hasn't been thought about very much because the set was just released, is that this can get back Stern Leonis, and it's actually a really good fit for Stern Leonis because you're going to be able to then use the other cards in your break zone to do stuff, and it works really well there. So yeah, I think that the card is pretty solid. I don't think it's gonna be like a staple 3 of in like any deck in particular, but like I think Mono Lightning is happy to play this, and I think Lightning plus whatever is gonna be happy to have 1 or 2 of these is just like a little catch-all that gets you some value.
Yeah, I'm excited to use them. All right, there we have the Puppet Master. Such cool artwork. Such a lame card.
Yep. Yep.
And then we have Gnath. That is our lightning. That is our lightning version where we scry through the deck. And then we have Fathin. This is our monster counter version. I mean, losing power is always good, but it's active, so garbage, and we passed it. Cute card though. Man, I feel like we got a bunch of lightning duds here in a row. This is Schuzelt, I think. And God, his just effects seem so underpowered and just so minimal. Like, do you have something to say about this, or should I go past?
This card would have been borderline in like Opus 4 Wind Lightning. I'm like looking at it in Opus 14. I'm like, I don't know, man. Because it would make a lot of sense to me if it was like when you cast a Lightning Forward or whatever, and then or whatever. Because then actually, no, it wouldn't change anything. Now that I think about it, I was thinking about like one of the things that makes it fall flat is like if you play Sakura, the Sakura just doesn't even trigger.
Exactly.
Like you don't get the 1k ping or whatever. So like it doesn't work with Ewen, it doesn't work with Sakura, and it's just not where you want to be in Opus 14. Maybe it's like a Popper playable card in like a Popper Wind Lightning where you're like trying to deal like damage and then use Ramuh or whatever to deal an extra 7k. But we're not playing this in like Opus 14 standard, or I don't even think we're playing it in like L3.
Exactly.
So
he's a knight, so maybe in a knight build, but I feel like you've got better. Yeah, you want Ramza, so whatever. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Schuzelt.
It's
here we have the Sylph. This is our primal for backup to support our lightning primals, which we know about. And then now we have Heidegger. Again, I believe this is his first appearance in FFTCG, and I have to admit, I'm not really big on this. So I do like 2 CP backups that have optional effects. He's a good one. Zondi's another example. So it's nice that at his worst, you just play him early as a 2 CP backup. You can start generating. But for the break effect, I don't know. I don't know if I want to pitch another 2 cards from hand to break a forward. And then his break zone effect's fine, but I don't know. I'm kind of not really high on Heidegger. What do you think?
I think this card it's okay. Like 1, maybe 2 of. It's nice having a Lightning 7 backup that Cloud can go and search. That isn't one of the Turks, because the Turks are basically just vanillas, and this one actually has the potential to get value back later. Another good thing about it is that it's a nice turn 1 Neo ExDeath out. You can just play it to the field and then pitch 2, and the Neo ExDeath is gone. It's not like the greatest trade for you because it's 4 cards for 4 cards, but it's better than losing. So there's that. True. And then and then putting it the active ability to put it in the break zone is just decent for like getting value out of your backups later in the game when you're trying to close out. But also it works with Ravana, the primal. So I think it'll see play probably just because it's breakable and it has a decent effect and it works with Ravana. Whether or not it's like the best backup, it's just like decent.
Fair. Speaking of which, bum 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 bum. I gotta play Ravana's theme during this part. Take wing, ye souls of war, which is my favorite Ravana quote. We have our savior of the Gnath. This, I think, was one of the very first cards spoiled for Opus 14. So we've all had a lot of time to think about it. And man, like, I'm thinking about them. I don't know if there's a perfect build out there that I haven't thought of yet. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this isn't something we want just murdering us over and over again. In my head, like, we have things like Astinian and we have Behemoth K, and those are basically, I'm going to deal you 2 points of damage kind of cards. So because of that, I kind of think, I feel like this guy has to attack 3 times to make him worth it. People have talked about all kinds of builds. Hey, you can use Flans, make him discard, he'll reactivate. You obviously just mentioned Heidegger. Like, he's a cool primal in Heaven's Word, and he has the 4 arms, and they all will attack you. So he is very thematic that way. Like, I don't know, though. Is this guy going to work? I'm not sure. I'm still not sure what to think of him.
Yeah, so he works really well with like the 4 CP backup, the Gnath, because you can, pop it or whatever and get more attacks in that way. Yeah, I'm not on board with Ravana. There's the dream there, and when it works, I'm sure it's gonna feel really, really good, right? Or like when you play the Flans out and prep the turn and everything goes perfectly, and you Ravana and one turn, kill him in 2 turns or whatever with a bunch of Ravana triggers. It's gonna feel really awesome. But it gets 1 carded by Kusha. I can't play cards that are like that, So think that this one falls a little flat compared to the other primal in the set, or in its color, Ramuh, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, I think this one's a little bit of a swing and a miss, but it has the potential. It has the card power. It just I don't think that there's the card pool to support it. I don't think that breaking your own stuff is ever going to be quite good enough for a card like this that doesn't have can't be chosen. Because as long as you can choose it, which if this card had can't be chosen, be completely insane. But as long as you can choose it, there's just too much that just incidentally pushes it out of the way. If you start attacking, if I flip the new Leviathan and bounce it to your hand, then it's just the turn's over, your game plan's done, and you have to pay 6 again and give it haste again or wait a whole turn. It's too linear, I think.
Yeah, bless the person who the opponent's on 6 damage and he just swings in, they block, swings in again, block, swings and block. That's gonna be amazing, but way too inconsistent. All right, then we have, is this Mnejing? I have to reread. Oh, okay, this is the one that buffs by 1,000. I mean, I guess not bad on a 2 CP. It seems only, at first I completely dismissed it because I was like, there's a ton of cards that do that, but it does it in lightning, so is that yay?
Yeah, so 1k buff is very solid. I'm not sure that it's particularly relevant for a lot of the lightning forwards. It could be very I can see it being very annoying if you swing in with Alba and then the Alba goes to 8k when it removes something, and then the Alba's 9k, and you're these guys shouldn't be this hard to block, that kind of thing can be pretty annoying. Do I actually think it'll make a huge impact? Probably not. It's just gonna be one of those nice bonuses if you can fit it in your deck, and if it works with a lot of your cards.
Probably decent and limited.
Oh yeah, I think it's quite good and limited probably, because power buff is just so good and limited. But
yeah. Next we have Ewen, who is not a ninja. He's a Nightfall, even though he looks everything like a ninja, but I've never played Advanced 2, so I don't know. When he enters the field, choose a damage forward, break it. Alex Hancock was super low on this. In his review, the people at my locals think this card's amazing because it's 1 CP on a body. I'm not really sure. At first I'm like, well, it's 1 CP and it's super cheap and you just break a damage forward. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to need to play this one to be really sure because I kind of go back and forth. What about you?
It's quite playable. I don't think it's quite as poor as Alex's review would lead people to believe, just because if you're already playing Ramuh and with the new Ramuh and Raiden and all of these ping effects, then you're just going to benefit from having more synergies with it, right? So if I'm already playing Ramuh Lord of Levin and Ramuh and Raiden or whatever, I might as well just pop a 2 of these into the deck and kind of like top off with that kind of thing. That being said, I wouldn't like go out of my way to play other like ping effects just to capitalize on this. I don't think that kind of strategy is amazing in 2021 in Opus 14, but just because like removal is you're never coming out ahead on removal unless you're also negating the auto or unless it's developing extra stuff for you. And I just think the 1 CP body isn't going to be quite as impactful as it needs to be to really cause that kind of like removal swing. So
fair. Speaking of Ramuh, this is one of the few primals that wasn't revealed before we got this whole set reveal, and this is one when I saw it, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I had to read it a couple times, and I can honestly say, and I'm not normally like a huge Lightning player, I want to build around this card. I absolutely do. He's so cool. I'm sure one of the things the most immediate people think about is that the Raiden, I think from Opus 10, that just does damage to the whole board if they're active. Guess what? Then Ramuh says Judgment Bolt, and they just bam, 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 and they all break. And something I think is kind of underrated part of him too is that it's also when Ramuh deals damage to something. So if he is in combat with anyone, they'll always die. Like unless they have like I think can't be broken effect or whatever. But he'll always kill whatever he's in combat with. So you could use that with like Hecaton. I don't know. Like he just sounds so neat, and the idea that like lightning turning all these little zaps all of a sudden into now they just die. I think one of the coolest primals and one of the ones I'm the most excited to build around.
Yeah, this one it looks like it's got one of those evergreen effects where like giving all of your lightning summons Death Touch and having Death Touch yourself is just like really good. That being said, I think like a lot of the English-speaking community like saw this card and was like, "Oh my god, this is so broken," kind of thing. Like Raiden just became like a 1 CP board clear, and I'm like, well, but not really, right? It's like kind of it only clears the actives, or if you do the 2 CP Ramuh, it only clears 2 forwards, and you gotta put these shitty summons in your deck, right? Like that's the big downside. So yeah, the combo is really good. And if when you resolve Ramuh plus one of the summons, it's gonna be very it's gonna be a huge CP swing into your favor, and then you can like put in damage or whatever. But like there's a lot of decks that just like if you Ramuh and then if you play Ramuh and then play one of the summons and clear their board, they don't care. They'll just clear the Ramuh and then make another board because like it was just as CP efficient for them to make the board as it was for you to clear. And this is still a 5 CP 9K, right? Without an ETB. So I think that the card it's totally sick, and it goes in the direction that I always wanted to build like Ice Lightning and Lightning. I already have a sick build like lined up with this with Ewen and Barthandelus because I love Barthandelus, and I played like Barthandelus Une in Opus 10 with the Raiden to like clear boards, and this is just like totally perfect at making that kind of thing viable. Do I think it's like a new tier 1 archetype? I don't know if I'm quite sold on this, being like a super competitive thing, but it's going to be really fun, and it's going to be something that you have to like keep in mind when you're deck building, I think, because it can be problematic if you're not prepared to play against, this kind of effect, and then you get got and you just get like totally wiped by it. Yeah. I
think the haste on him is really easy to overlook too, but he's probably almost always going to have haste. So however great he ends up being, I'm so excited to try him because he just sounds fun. He just sounds, again, really creative.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have Ramuh the Summon, which I have to admit, if it weren't for that Ramuh, I would just dismiss this completely as like a completely garbage card. But I think he's clearly meant to work with the Lord of Levin because who cares how much damage it does to them if it just breaks them. And very importantly, for Lightning, it doesn't have to target active forwards. So you just pick, and it doesn't matter what state they're in. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yep. All the nails hit on the head right there. Only thing I have to add is that if you go back and look at the other Ramuhs, most of them are pretty bad.
Yeah.
So like, I was trying to like, because I want to play it with Barthandelus. So I was like looking at the card pool, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to put some garbage cards in the deck if I ever wanted to even hit 2K. Like, it's really, really bad if you don't combo it with the Ramuh. So, so if you're not comboing it with the Primal, this card is just awful. And if you are, then let me know what Ramuh you're using, because I just can't find one. So.
All right, and new Dragoon, which I was excited for because as much as I love my Dragoon build, where it's pure Dragoons off of the Alice, definitely the thing the deck lacked was it just doesn't have many forms of removal. It basically had the special Dragoon from Opus 12, which was a great start. This guy's really good, and as we know, power reduction is one of the best forms of removal in the game. Gets around things like Arden, gets around stuff that can't be broken, gets around things like Minwu, Ishtola. So yeah, I'm really excited for this guy. And with the way Dragoons plays, it should be really easy to get 9k on him.
I think 9k is like the floor with this card. You should just read it as like you must have 3 other Dragoons, or three. You must control 3 Dragoons for the effect to activate, and then otherwise it just is break the 4, like put it in break zone. It seems solid. I don't think it's quite as like. This wasn't like the one card that Dragoons needed, like as the meme goes. It's not like the one card that they needed to hit tier 1. It's still just going to be the same deck that it always was. It just has like another nice entry ability, not garbage forward.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty solid, and it still doesn't make Dragoons tier 1. It just kind of helps.
Sure. Well, and Matiski said this in his Opus 13 review with that Dragoon, is that the more new ones we get like this, though, the more the older ones we can filter out, and so it will just naturally kind of keep boosting it. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
And I do think that Dragoons really needed this card to keep up with board clear, because like they had no way to take a board back once it was gone. It was just like I should clarify that. So they had
Cherry Blossom.
There's the Freya S. Yeah, they have Cherry Blossom. They have Freya S. But you have to have your own board for that to work. So once your board was gone, you could never take a board. And like cards like this are going to help with that, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah, here is a Luso who I'm just like, I don't even know what to think of this card. Like, he's a burst, which is cool. He's got a special entry effect, but he's really weak. Like, I don't know. I'm not really high on this card. Do you see any potential I'm not seeing?
Not really. It's got a cool, he's got a cool S ability, but I don't know. Like, this is one of those like weird cards where you have to like go back and like analyze the card pool to like really understand what you're supposed to be doing with him. So I haven't done that, so I can't have like any like super strong opinions.
Same.
But it just looks like one of those low impact forwards that they just kind of added because like the art's nice, and it would be cool if we managed to fit this card into FFT and FFTA too. Yeah. So,
Moving on. Ravus, God, I was so happy when I saw this and so disappointed when I read it. Again, I play the Category 15 deck, and I have the other Ravus in there. How is this guy worse than him? Like, it's okay. So, he can come down for 1 if you, like, lose Glauca that turn. Like, why can't it be, like, if you control a captain, he comes... No, it's got to die, and then he comes in for 5k power reduction. I mean, losing power is good, but it's only 5k. Like, I don't know. I was so disappointed. I was like, oh no, new Ravus. Oh god, this card.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I took one look at the job captains and I was like, not cutting it, huh? I was like, it's Glauca and him? Is that it? I think that's it, right?
For like, I mean, there's a few other random ones. I think Borgin is like a captain.
Ranjit is a captain in Borgin. And core. Yikes. Okay. So yeah, this card basically just is never going to get reduced.
Why? Whatever. Okay. Then Roche, a card that, well, it's based off a character I absolutely can't stand, and it's just like, who? Like, this is one of these moments I want to grab Tetsuya Nomura and just put my arm around and be like, sir, can I ask you a question? So when you were remaking Final Fantasy VII, why did you think this needed to be in there? Like, did you think, you know what that masterpiece was missing? Some random asshole on a motorcycle chasing you, like, whatever. Game aside, I actually kind of like this card. Like, I'm not really even an aggro player, but I like the idea of, turn 1, free, boop, just going for a free hit. And beyond that, I think he's done his job. So for what he does, I actually kind of like him.
Yeah, I think the card is pretty sick. I think you summed it up really well with the random asshole. That's kind of like what this card is. Yeah. It's just like some random asshole that just comes in and hits you in the face on turn 1.
Does a drive-by.
I see myself losing, because I play mostly control decks, for people who don't know. And I see myself losing like a lot of games to just like getting hit by this guy 3 times when he comes in on turn 1, and just like, as soon as they put my backups down, I'll be okay. You know, like, yeah. So, I think there's definitely potential there. It's one of those cards that, like, I'm not one of the no backup players, but if you're one of those no backup players, this is where you want to be. You want to throw this down, hit him in the face, and get the ball rolling. And I think that this does it really well. And I think this is what like aggro cards should look like in Opus 14, like this. And I think Gutsco is maybe a little overtuned, but like this kind of stuff, this is what you need in the game to like make sure that board clear isn't just really overpowered.
Right. So. Well, and I like something like this because if your opponent, I think this is a good design because again, if your opponent immediately plays a Blaze or a Vivi to take him out, they feel good because they took him out with a backup, but you feel good too because you didn't invest anything in him. You're like, yeah, he was just free. So like, I really like this design. I'm glad you mentioned that. All right, and that'll do it for Lightning. So moving on to Water with our Blue Mage here. Lovely art, but if Quattro Queen didn't see any play, this basically does the same thing, but less, so I don't see this scene play.
Yeah, it looks so cool, and is a big disappointment.
Mm-hmm. All right, then we have the Anata. That's the water version of the ones where it picks through. Go past that. Ultimecia, as usual with her cards, I still remember the Opus 9 one. You know, there's potential here, shenanigans. In my experience, shenanigans go against you more than they help you out, so probably not going to work, but the potential's there.
Yeah, if there's ever... So the one thing that this card really has going for it is that... It lets you sack one of your forwards whenever you want. Like, just on your turn, you don't have to play another forward. It's a backup that just sacks your stuff. So, Golbez is really like the thing that comes to mind, right? You can just turn one, Golbez, Ultimecia, get all of your Archfiends, and then bring back a Golbez with the Barbarisha effect or whatever. Like, that seems like something that could feasibly happen with this card. Do I think you're ever actually going to be playing it to like steal your opponent's forwards?
Right.
No, I don't think that that's just ever really going to happen. If you are, Layla Viking and like a mono water deck can maybe get it done, but we're not slotting this card to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think shenanigans is basically the right thing. The only competitive use is just to sack your Golbez, I think.
We're calling shenanigans. Everyone get out your brooms. All right, here we have Eiko, a card my buddy was really high on. You'll have to tell me if this is a playstyle you like. I don't like this at all. To me, this is a middleman card. There are cards that outright search you a summon, so for me to search one out to then just throw it into my break zone to then maybe get it back later with her action ability, it's like, why would I do all that work when I have cards that will just grab me the summon outright? So this isn't my style at all. Do you see a use for this?
No, I was actually really surprised that a lot of people thought that this card was sick. I think that the only thing that this card really does is put 1 out of 3 summons in your break zone for Archery. Mm-hmm. So I think that's basically what it's doing. I think that they are reluctant to let us search summons at all. Because searching summons can be like really, really potent, with cards like Sildra and stuff like that. So I think the like indirectly searching it and putting it into the break zone for 2 was like as close as they were willing to let us get. But yeah, I don't really see us playing this backup because it like look at the cards that it's going to be competing with. It's going to be competing with like if you're playing a water deck, you got like Sarah, you want Ovelia for the Agrius. If you're playing summons, you want Yuna for the summons. Like there's just never going to be room for this card. I don't think it's going to see a whole lot of play. But I would be really happy to be wrong about it. I just don't see it.
Yeah, agreed. Octomammoths, some of Amano's coolest art. I love the way he did this guy. And I agree with you earlier. I think this is actually right there with Typhon. I think this is the other best monster of this variety. Yeah. Getting to bounce 2 of the forwards is really cool. And it's just really cool art. So yeah, I like this guy a lot.
Yeah, it's sick. The face is amazing. I wish I could make this face myself. Yeah, I think the only thing that puts it behind Typhon is... So Typhon puts the forward back into the deck, so obviously that doesn't put it back into their hands, so they can just immediately play it, and also the 2 CP gets returned to them. It has, but in exchange, it hits up to 2, so you could potentially get the same kind of CP return by bouncing 2 of their stuff instead. That being said, if your opponent has 1 forward, Typhon is always live. If your opponent has 1 forward, Octomammoth isn't quite as live. You kind of really want to get the 2 to get like your full CP investment. So it's a little more situational than Typhon. That being said, like if bounce is ever going to be like if bouncing your opponent's forwards is ever going to be good, like this is the card to do it, right? It's so CP efficient and it's so good. So yeah, I think that I'm excited to play with this card. I'm definitely going to just be jamming it in all my mono water decks for the first half of the set. I'm pretty sure just play one or two of these, and it's just really efficient, really good, good stats.
100%, sir. And up next is Ultros, and I wasn't really high on this card when I first saw it, and the more I thought about it, I've kind of gone down on it a bit. Like, I don't know, I don't really like the whole self-mill aspect. And the thing is, too, with these Ultros is, like, if they're all going to be beholden to the Opus 9 legend, where you want all these Ultroses in the break zone so that he can do this big board clear when he attacks, like, but again, the more copies you run of a named card, that's more hand clash, that's more name clash on your board. And then, but then to do his effect even, like, he removes himself from the break zone, so then he doesn't even add to that Ultros. Like, I don't know, like, I like the art, and I like the concept of the Ultros, but I kind of think this one's a miss for me.
It's definitely a miss. Like, for like Ultros in general, like as a deck, it's just like I don't ever see it happening. It's just like one of those memes. It's kind of cool. The Ultros, he runs away, he always comes back, and that's like his thing. This card in specific, milling yourself 5 and then removing and then getting another Ultros. This one, as a 2CP 5K, might actually be playable someday if there's a reason to mill yourself in water.
Yeah.
Right now, there's just no reason to do it. But we've seen that, like, milling yourself can be potentially good in decks like Verstale. I think this is maybe the third time that I brought this up in this video. But, like, putting cards in your break zone to use for Celsius is, like, just really good. So if we have that style of deck someday where, like, putting forwards and summons in your break zone with Ultros is aggressively milling yourself, it's just good, then this card could be good potentially one day. Opus 14, probably not.
Yep. Sorry, Ultros, not this time. You know whose time it is to shine is Leviathan, the Lord of the Whorl. I wasn't sure if Bounce would ever be good, and if it's ever going to be good, surely this is the card to do it.
Yeah.
That 9 CP is expensive, but just thinking about him today, I hadn't realized this, that, a monster is probably not going to be there, so you're probably only going to get 2, but if you bounce a forward and a backup, you also get 2 of his triggers of 9k reduction because you sent 2 cards back. So in some sense, that seems like that almost might be hard because that would mean they need to have 3 forwards, 1 you send back, and you kill the other 2, but if you do, good gravy. And again, it just gives bounce for either player, and it's not limited. Like, they could have easily once per turn or only on you, and that would have totally, I think, sunk this card. But this dude seems awesome, like Ramuh. I can't wait to build a deck around him. He does seem expensive, but I don't know. I can also see a world where it's like, this guy need to be 12. This is way too cheap. I don't know. What do you think of Leviathan?
This is my pick for, like, Legend of the set. It's like the coolest. It's so powerful. There is so much depth to the card, because it's not just because it works with because it works with everything. It's it works when your opponents bounces cards. It works when you bounce cards. It works when you bounce your own cards. It works when you bounce your opponent's cards. It synergizes. It works with, obviously, its own primal backup so that you can immediately, like, use the effects or use the extra CP to get extra triggers of this effect, and it gives water a nice out to, like, Scale Toad and stuff like that. If that was ever a consideration, it does that as well. I love this card. I can't wait to see it. I think if you're playing water, this is immediately a consideration. I think this is good enough to bring back mono water. I think it's good enough to bring back wind water. And I think you probably, even if you just, like, have no other bounce, I'm pretty sure you just play this in, like, Sophie or whatever, because it's just a good board player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned this in the Bismarck. We'll say it again, too. If you do bounce the Leviathan for some reason, even though he's expensive, he will see himself leave, so you will still get his 9k reduction trigger. So what a scary primal. All right. Then we have Quina. Man, Quina, I feel like, just hasn't gotten that solid all-around card. That said, I do think this one maybe has some potential in the sense that it doesn't, like, really have any costs associated with its effect. Dull her, just remove stuff from the break zone. Or the first one, you're just pitching a monster from hand, draw, and then suddenly she's a power bump. Or it's a power bump. I always forget what they say in the game. I think they define it as it. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, if monster decks are ever a thing, maybe this is the card for it. But are they ever going to be a thing?
I think you put it nicely there at the end. If you're playing a monster deck, then you're going to play Realm and Quina, because these are just, like, the payoff cards for playing monsters. is this card like pushing monsters to a new level? Nah, probably not. It's nice to have this effect, and it's very, very welcome that they made a new name besides Gao and Realm that works with monsters, because now you can play Realm Gao and Quina, and all these cards work together pretty nicely in the way the names and the effects function. Quina in specific, removing dead monsters from your break zone basically was something that like you didn't have good ways to capitalize on the volume of monsters that you put in your break zone before, and now that you can with this card, maybe there's some additional like value angles to play from the monster decks. But yeah, you're not gonna like all of a sudden see a bunch of monster decks because Quina came along.
Yeah. All right, then we have Kraken, probably the most playable of the Chaos Fiends, but still nothing you're going to use outside of maybe Limited.
Yeah, definitely the most playable. But there's like if it was just a 4 CP 8K and it said discard a card, draw 2 cards, it would probably be like a lot more playable because then it'd just be a 2 CP 8K. But because you have to discard a Chaos, there's just no way.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the Corsair backup. This is the one that, you draw a discard, and then you can discard a multi-element to draw discard again, which generally you don't want to be discarding your multi-elements because those are usually like your big bodies. So yeah, cool artwork, but I don't see this getting used.
Yep.
And then we have Golbez. Man, they always find something fun to do with Golbez. One of my best buddies, his card was like built for him. He loves like his Viking deck with the Viking that came out last Opus, so he's 100% going to put this in that deck, go to his attack phase, flip that Viking off the top, flip another Viking, flip another, and then just the whole chain will start. I do actually, what I like about this card is that sometimes these Golbez effects are like, you got to wait a turn, or there's always just, I don't know, some kind of like jank or cost connected to it. I do like that this one is at the beginning of the attack phase, so unless they have some immediate removal, you're always going to at least get his ability. And then again, if it whiffs, you're not like punished by putting it into the break zone. The action ability seems kind of hard to use, but I don't know, maybe there's some weird, again, maybe you're happy to sack off all those Vikings to take control of their Broskas or something. So kind of memey, but I know some people who are going to really enjoy this guy.
Yeah, I think besides just being like a nice fun card, the primary use that I see with this card is you play Golbez 6, you Ultimecia because you're playing Water Lightning Golbez, and then you sack the Golbez 6, you get the 4 Archfiends, and then Barbarisha brings this one out. And then you can use, if like you can just attack and win the game that way, obviously. And then if your opponent like wants to clear, you can use the Golbez ability to sack 4 and then like take the Sasano or whatever if it comes out the turn after. And so the Archfiends are like fuel for this Golbez if it comes to that. And then this one is threatening to get like more value every turn while you're doing that. Whatever those forwards end up being for you. So there is like a definitely like use cases for this card, both as like an Archfiend and like Golbez deck card, and also just as like a standalone card that works, like with Vikings or just as a value plan going forward.
Yeah, he seems fun. Sahagin, he's our water primal backup. He's going to be useful when he's useful. Jekt. This card was a surprise. We'll see if it stood up. Was it Lostley? Was he the one who was wanting this card so bad?
Yeah, he wanted a Jekt with this art really bad.
Yeah, so we got this Jekt. Love the art. The effect is interesting. It's hard to say. Like, the first one I don't think would be too hard to resolve. If you can resolve that where 3 things attack, that's a great effect that you're getting to draw a card, and then I think he breaks something on entry as well. Like, that's
you
really
break
awesome.
the chosen forward and draw one.
Yeah, I mean,
really
that might be tough to do, 3 forwards, but to me, the main is the Jekt block, which is got to be one of the coolest specials in the game. There's no cost to it. It can be used immediately, so even if they like try to respond to his entry, and it can just cancel anything. You can take a stack of fucking 10 cheeseburgers and just be like, yep, I'm going to eat those all. And they're all gone. Like, what a cool special. This was that thing I'd mentioned earlier. This is the 5th way to cancel an auto ability in the game. And this one isn't even limited to a single one. And it's like, yeah, I don't think so. Cancel all that. Really cool special. What do you think of Jekt?
Yeah, I think if this card was anything besides a 5 CP 9K, that special would be good enough to play it. It's on par with Paradise for best special in the game, I think. but the auto ability is so bad, and like the body is so bad that like I don't you know maybe this card is playable if like you really want to. If you want to play like I think Water Lightning Party would be a good way to enable this, because you can like Layla Viking, and then Pandoria draws you a card, and then Yuna draws you cards, and then this one doesn't feel like it costs as much as a result. But most of the time, especially if you're playing like the defensive deck, you're just like not going to be able to resolve the auto, or if you do, you're only going to be able to resolve the bounce, and you're never going to get the 3, which is when the card actually gets really good. But yeah, the Jack block is like so cool that I want to play it really, really bad.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to use him as protection for my Leviathan, because then even bounce something there, kills that for 9k. Oh, you want to protect? Jack blocked. Cry, little boy.
Yeah.
Him picking on Titus. Okay, and then we have Steiner. Worst card in the set. My vote for why is this in Opus 14?
Yeah, it's up there with the 3 CP win guy that I can't pronounce the name of, the FF11 for worst card in the set. That's about it.
Yep. Toneberry, I kind of mentioned this earlier in Fire. I think this is kind of one of the most interesting of these type of monsters, just because I like the idea of you looking at 20 cards and getting to pick, but again, that requires you to bring them down early, count them up. So yeah, these monsters just no good. So let's go to our second primal. Great theme. You should play her theme whenever you cast her. And this is Lakshmi, Lady of Bliss. And I kind of like her the more I read her. Her first effect where she gets the damage reduction. At first I thought, oh, 5 in hand, that might be tough. But she's also just passive card draw at the end of the turn. That's pretty cool. And so your opponent's definitely going to want to take her out because they don't want you just sitting around drawing cards. What do you think?
I like the card a lot. I think obviously it's really sick if you have Sahagins on the field, because if she effectively only costs you like 2 or 3, then a 2 or 3 CP 7k that draws you a card every turn is really, really good. At 4 CP, it's a little more. It's a little more tough to justify playing, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I don't think that she's going to make the cut unless you're playing specifically Mono Water or Sophie. And I think the case for her in Sophie is that if you're playing Sophie, and then this card is effectively just a 2 CP 7k, because she's going to draw you a card at the end of the turn, that helps you generate more advantage over time, which and buff the Sophie an additional 2k. And something that the Sophie deck really, really lacked, if you weren't playing specifically Mono Earth Monks with Sophie, is water forwards. Like there's just like not many good water forwards in the game. So like you're like scrambling, you're playing like Yuna 3, even though it's like never on. You're playing like Porum, even though you don't really need it outside of the EX. And this is just like a great way to turn to buff Sophie an extra 2k, threaten more value over time, and and the passive is going to be on a good chunk of the time if you're playing Sophie. You'll often have 5 cards in hand. So
awesome. And now we have our other water legend, Larsa, who is always going to be worth a look because it brings a unique mechanic to the game that we've never had before, swapping a card out from your damage zone. I won't lie, I don't actually like this card conceptually for me, and maybe it's inevitable in a card game that's going to go on for a long time, but I always liked that the damage zone was sacred, and that if you lost your one of whatever into the damage zone, that was it. It was gone. And like, don't get me wrong, I've been on the receiving end of that. Like, are you kidding me that all 3 of those went to damage, or both of those, or whatever it was? But I also kind of appreciate that as part of the game, so I don't really like the idea that you can mess with it. That being said, trying to look at this as objectively as I'm able to, I also could see this being kind of just like, I don't know. Like, it's neat, but I don't know. Is it got a lot of lineup? So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like him as a concept, but I think he could be fun. I don't know. What do you think of Larsa?
I don't have the same kind of reservations about like the damage zone being sacred. I don't mind it as much. That being said, I don't think that Larsa is generically good. I don't think that you would want to play him just to swap. Like, you don't want to play a 2CP 5k just to swap cards in the damage zone. What I think you want to be doing with the card is, enabling Axstar, and that's really where the card shines. You want to put your Remora, you want to put your Leviathan, like those kinds of cards. You want to put those into the damage zone, and then you want to play Axstar, and you want to get a bunch of CP back. And that's really where this card shines. So I think Water Fire EX. I don't know if anybody else has put any time into building preliminary builds for that, but it just gets like 35 or 40 EX bursts for no reason. Like it's just like free, and you have like 3 or like 4 different ways to search backups. Most of them are from water into fire, so you have like Sarah, Leonora, and the one that searches goblins. I can't remember her name.
Verona.
Yeah, Verona. Yeah. Verona,
Verena,
something
yeah,
like
one
that.
of those.
Yeah, you have like those. So those are all like searching backups for you. And then specifically, Verena searching Goblin Princess, you get the Citra to your hand, and then that's just like supposed to be a dead card. But then if you play Larsa, the Citra gets turned into a real card, and then you also get to use the Citra EX with Axstar. So it's like
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of synergy there, and you kind of get like a free backup over like an extended couple of turns. So yeah, there's a lot to be done there, and I think that deck is definitely one to keep your eye on. You know, it's like a free 35, 40 burst, and also you know like have all this combo potential, and you also get to play just generically good forwards. You know, like Ranjit, Agrius, whatever it is you want to play. And but yeah, that deck is definitely one to keep your eye out for, and I think that's where Larsa is really going to shine.
Awesome. So Larsa, give him Axstar's number because he's definitely going to be giving him a call.
Yep.
And now we have, speaking of EX bursts, Leviathan Summon. Wasn't super high on this one. Still not really as I read it. It just seems very expensive. Like if I'm spending 6 CP on a water summon, I feel like I want to cast Remora. Even though this guy does have some versatility. I don't know. What do you think?
I think if the question is like, do I play Remora or Leviathan? I think a lot of the times you're going to end up playing Remora. Just because it's more powerful with, like the Axstar, for Larsa interaction specifically, it's more powerful with Axstar. And it's just like, it's got more stuff to do in general. Like it outs, Arden, and it's a better EX burst in general. That being said, I think that this one is really, really strong. And it's definitely more modal. So the way that I am looking at it is... It reads a lot like Fenrir, but with EX burst to me, because it deals with the light or dark. It tops or bottoms it, so that works obviously against Omega and stuff like that. It bounces, which is generally worse than Break, which is where it's not going to shine as well as Remora. But it also has guaranteed value in the last mode, which is choose a water forward and return to your hand. And obviously, so this means that it falls into the same category as Ifrita, where it's like a +1 EX burst that also deals with your opponent's forward. And I think that's really where this shines. Obviously, the reason it costs 6 instead of 5 is because Unit exists. So like just because Unit exists, like all of the water summons in the game immediately have to cost 1 more than they normally would, basically. And so that's why I think, but in exchange it also gets EX as a result. So I think that's where this card is. For Mono Water specifically, I'm excited to use this with Yuna and Marshery, so that Marshery will reduce it another 1, so it'll be a 4 CP, and then if you use Marshery's active, then it'll be 1 CP. And that goes for Remora too, so you can use both. And then there's a lot of Mono Water cards that work really well with water summons outside of these, so like Minwu and Folka come to mind as other potential ways to use these and kind of get around their high cost.
That's fair. It's very fair. All right, and I believe this is our last water card. This is Luzoff. He's back attack, back up. Back attack, pretty rare keyword in this game, so always worth giving a look. And then what does he do? So when he enters, so you can bounce one of your own forwards, and then it gives the Famford effects. They have to select it. Yep. If this was on a forward, I think I'd be all over this effect. Again, backups for me are always kind of weird because I want to ramp up as quick as I can. So once I get to 5, this guy just isn't going to do anything anymore. That being said, I could see some kind of nifty plays. But see, even then, like if I wanted to use him with like Leviathan to bounce one of mine, kill one of theirs, they got to select. But again, okay, well, you've got to have Leviathan out, and then you still have to have a backup slot open. So I was kind of high on this guy when I first saw him because, again, back attack's always like, ooh, back attack. But the more I read him, again, to me, he kind of reminds me of Strago. And even though I liked Strago, the amount of times I got to successfully do what I wanted to do with Strago was, very few and far between.
The only deck that is ever going to have room to play like one of this is Mono Water. And because there's like no way it's making its way into like Wind Water. That the deck is there's just no backup slots for it. So in Mono Water specifically, the number of cards that the number of forwards that you have that you aggressively want to bounce your hand is like close to zero. It's like maybe Agrias and then maybe Octomammoth, and I think Octomammoth is probably like the best use case for this card. Yeah, I don't think you're ever realistically getting Leviathan triggers with this. I think the best use is just like, just attack one of for the Famfred ability, bounce your Octomammoth, bounce your Agrias so that you can replay it and get both of the entry abilities again. And I think that's really all it's ever gonna get done. I don't have super high expectations for this card, but I wouldn't be surprised to see like one of it here, one of it there in some of the mono water builds going forward.
All right, folks, that will do it for those 3 elements. We will be back shortly to wrap things up for Opus 14. We're going to have your light and dark cards. Hey, we got 2 for each again. That's pretty exciting. And then our multi-elements, and this is the set that'll close those out. So Jared will join me again very shortly, and we'll see you then. Take care.